Sir, stop right there. We need to talk to you about that kid.
Hey, I need to get to my car, man. I'm freezing. I just pulled a child out of the lake.
That's exactly what we're discussing, buddy. Sounds suspicious to me.
Suspicious? I was saving him. He was drowning.
What were you even doing with that child in the water? You're detained now.
Detained? Call your supervisor. This is wrong.
The situation looks suspicious. Adult male by himself with kids in a quiet spot. Child looked like he was in trouble, sir. A guy dives into ice-cold water to rescue a drowning kid. Does CPR, gets the boy breathing again, and ends up in handcuffs for it. This is Marcus Jackson, 41 years old, 13 years in the Army's 82nd Airborne Division. Purple Heart, Silver Star with Valor. The man who pulled 2 wounded squad members to safety under heavy machine gun fire in Kandahar, now a full-time paramedic and firefighter. And Officer Brandon Hayes just put him in cuffs for the most heroic thing a person can do, saving a 10-year-old boy from drowning in 48-degree water. Officer Hayes doesn't realize it yet, but he already has 15 previous complaints of racial targeting. 15 black people who said Hayes singled them out for no reason. 15 complaints that Internal Affairs brushed off every single time. And Marcus Jackson is about to become the case that finally gets this officer fired. When that Bodycam video goes public, when the kid tells his story in court, when Marcus's military file gets pulled up, when Hayes's long history of biased stops comes out, this wrongful arrest is going to cost the city $8 million and make it crystal clear that ignoring a pattern of abuse turns into massive legal liability. Drop a comment if you think officers who have repeated, documented bias should be removed before they handcuff actual heroes. What you're about to hear is how real courage turned into a criminal accusation, how one little boy's honest words took on an entire broken system, and how a highly decorated veteran had to fight just to prove he did nothing wrong. Marcus Jackson was 41. His body carried the marks of a life spent running toward danger. 13 years active duty with the 82nd Airborne, the unit the Army calls when the mission is too hard for almost anyone else. 4 combat tours, Iraq twice, Afghanistan twice. He retired as a staff sergeant. The medals weren't just for showing up. They were earned in blood, pain, and refusing to leave anyone behind. Purple Heart, Kandahar, 2008. Took multiple pieces of shrapnel from a roadside bomb while dragging 2 badly wounded guys to an extraction point. Bleeding from his leg, arm, and side, still carried both men. Both lived because Marcus refused to quit on them. Silver Star with Valor, Paktika Province, 2012. His platoon was pinned for 7 straight hours. Marcus kept the fighting position, took another wound, ran out of ammo, started throwing whatever he could find, rocks, pieces of gear, anything to keep the enemy back until air support showed up. Saved 11 lives that day. Medical retirement in 2019. Too many surgeries, too much damage that wouldn't heal right. But the instinct to save people didn't stop when he left the Army. He became a paramedic, then a firefighter. 8 years at Station 17. Known for keeping his cool when everything was falling apart. Known for bringing people back alive. Officer Brandon Hayes was 37, 12 years with the Harrison County Police Department. Those 12 years had built a file that should have ended his badge long before he ever crossed paths with Marcus Jackson. 15 formal complaints, every single one from a black person. Excessive force, illegal stops, racial profiling, bogus arrests, intimidation. Internal Affairs looked at everyone and cleared him 14 times. Not enough proof. Complainant didn't follow through. Officer followed procedure. 1 single written reprimand. No days off. No mandatory training. Just a sheet of paper nobody ever looked at again. Those 15 complaints painted a very clear picture. A delivery driver handcuffed for loitering at the same corner he stopped at every day. A community college instructor held for trespassing in his own classroom. A hospital respiratory therapist questioned for theft while still wearing hospital scrubs and her hospital badge. A middle school basketball coach detained for suspicious behavior at the gym where he'd coached for 9 years. A UPS driver pulled over 6 times in 4 months for made-up traffic violations. A dad put in cuffs for child endangerment while buckling his own son into the car seat because Hayes didn't believe the boy was really his. Every single person, black, every single case, no charges or charges dropped. Every single person filed a complaint. Every single story was the same. Officer Hayes sees black skin and sees a problem first. Hayes arrests first, asks questions never. Hayes has a pattern. But patterns only matter when somebody in power decides to actually look. And for 12 years, Harrison County Police chose not to look. March 18th was bitter cold, 40 degrees. Early spring still acting like January. Harrison Pond looked dark and mean under thick gray clouds. Water temp right at 48 degrees, cold enough to shut your body down fast. Marcus had driven out there on his day off to clear his head. Wife and kids were visiting family. He just wanted an hour of quiet. Trail, water, no radio calls, no sirens. He parked at 2:35, zipped up his coat, started walking the path along the shore. The park was almost deserted. Too cold for picnics, too early for evening walkers. Just Marcus, the wind whipping off the water, and, somewhere he couldn't see yet, 2 10-year-old boys playing way too close to water that doesn't give second chances. Officer Brandon Hayes was on patrol, saw a couple cars in the Harrison Pond lot on a day this cold, and figured it was worth a look. Or at least that's what he'd write in the report later. He pulled in, decided to check the area. And when Hayes checked black people, it usually ended with someone in cuffs. Marcus was maybe a quarter mile down the trail when the scream hit him. Not playing, not messing around. A scream that says someone is about to die. "Help! Help! He's drowning! Somebody please!" Marcus took off running, 60 yards around the curve, and saw 10-year-old Jaden Carter standing at the edge, screaming and pointing at the pond where his best friend Caleb Monroe was 25 feet out. Thrashing, going under, popping up for one panicked breath, going under again. Caleb had stretched too far for a flat rock to skip. Slipped. Fell into 11-foot water that was 48 degrees. The cold shocked his system instantly. Couldn't breathe right, couldn't move right. Pure panic. He was drowning 25 feet from the bank. Jaden couldn't swim well enough to help. All he could do was scream, and the only person close enough to hear was a black man sprinting straight toward them. Marcus hit the shore, saw Caleb go under and stay under, knew there were only seconds left. Didn't think about the cold. Didn't think about being alone. Didn't think about anything except get to the kid. Kicked his shoes off while running, threw his coat, dove in fully clothed. The water felt like knives. Chest locked up. Breathing turned into sharp, painful gasps. But his training took over. Years of emergencies took over. Swim. Reach. Secure. 25 feet of freezing water. Muscles cramping. Arms heavy. Still made it. Grabbed Caleb just as the boy slipped under for what would have been the last time. Pulled him up. Caleb was completely limp. Hypothermia and no oxygen taking over fast. Marcus locked him in a rescue carry, fought his way back to shore. His own body was shutting down from the cold, but he got there, hauled Caleb onto the grass. Jaden stood there sobbing, shaking, terrified. "Is he okay? Is Caleb okay?" Marcus felt for a pulse. Weak. No breathing. Started compressions immediately. 30 compressions. 2 rescue breaths, counting out loud, focused. This was Fallujah all over again. This was the back of a Black Hawk shaking from wind. This was last month in the firehouse on a cardiac call. 1 minute, 90 seconds, 2 minutes. Caleb coughed, spit water, sucked in a ragged breath. Eyes opened. Marcus rolled him onto his side. "You're okay, buddy. You're breathing. Just stay still. Jaden cried with relief. You saved him! You saved Caleb! Marcus looked down, hands trembling hard from cold, clothes soaked, wind slicing right through them. He needed heat fast, or he'd be the next one going into hypothermia. He stood up, started walking toward the parking lot, had to get to his truck, had to get warm, had to survive the rescue he just did. Officer Brandon Hayes was coming down the trail. Heard voices, excitement, not screaming anymore. Walked toward the noise, came around the bend, and saw exactly what 12 years of bias had conditioned him to see. Hayes didn't see a rescue. He saw a chance. Black man, white kids, physical contact, empty park. Pattern recognition kicked in. Suspicious. Possible crime. Another good stop. He turned on the body cam. Walked up. Didn't call for medics. Didn't ask what happened. He started his investigation. And when Brandon Hayes investigated black men, he usually found something, whether it was real or not. By the time Hayes reached them, other people were showing up, maybe 12 to 15 from the parking areas and other trails. They saw a drenched man, a kid coming around on the grass, another kid crying. Most of them instantly understood. Rescue, emergency, hero. Someone asked, "What happened here?" Jaden told anybody who'd listen. Caleb was drowning. This man jumped in and saved him. A lady already had her phone out, calling 911. There's a kid who almost drowned. We need an ambulance right now. A guy walked up to Marcus. You okay, man? You're shaking bad. You need to get warm. Marcus nodded, teeth chattering. I gotta get to my truck. I'm freezing. He started walking. Jaden followed. Thank you for saving Caleb. Thank you so much. Marcus gave a weak smile through the shaking. Make sure they take him to the hospital. Officer Hayes stepped right in his path, hand near his gun, body squared up, aggressive. Sir, stop right there. Police, we need to speak with you. Marcus stopped, turned, saw the look he'd seen too many times in 41 years. Not worry, not respect, just plain suspicion. I need to get to my truck. I'm freezing. I just pulled a kid out of the pond. Hayes looked him up and down. Black man soaked head to toe. Quiet park. White kids. Every checkbox in his head got ticked. That's what we need to talk about. What were you doing with that child in the water? Marcus stared at him, understanding exactly what the question really meant. What was I doing? I was saving him. He was drowning. I jumped in and did a rescue. Officer Mia Reyes, Hayes' partner, pulled up. 4 years on the job. Still followed Hayes' lead. And Hayes' lead was always suspicion when the person was black. She moved to Marcus's side. Standard unknown subject positioning. The situation looks suspicious. Adult male alone with kids in a deserted spot. Child in distress. We have to verify what happened. That's what Brandon Hayes does. He takes normal situations and turns them into something suspicious when the person is black. Delivery driver at his own stop equals loitering. Instructor in his own classroom equals trespassing. Coach at his own school equals suspicious person. Paramedic saving a drowning kid equals suspicious contact with a minor. The pattern was already on paper. 15 complaints, 15 times cleared. And Hayes learned he could keep going forever as long as he used the right phrases. Suspicious circumstances. Officer safety. Need to verify. Jaden ran up. He saved Caleb! Caleb was drowning and he jumped in and saved him. Why are you stopping him? Officer Reyes held up a hand. Son, step back. We're handling this. But he's a hero! He saved my best friend! Hayes ignored the kid, looked at Marcus. Sir, we need ID, and we need you to explain why you were in the water with this child. Marcus was shaking so hard he could barely get the words out, lips turning blue, fingers numb. I heard screaming. A kid was drowning. I'm a paramedic. I'm trained in water rescue. I went in and saved his life. That's what happened. So you're saying you didn't know this child before today? No. Never saw either of them before in my life. I was walking. Heard screaming. Saved a drowning kid. Hayes pulled out his notepad. Wrote something. His whole vibe said he didn't buy it. And you just happened to be in this empty part of the park at the exact time these kids were here alone? Marcus felt the change. This wasn't about finding out the truth. This officer had already decided he was a threat. This wasn't investigation. This was justification for an arrest that was already in his head. Are you seriously saying I did something wrong? I saved that kid's life. We're investigating. An adult male alone in the water with a child in an empty park requires investigation. People in the crowd started getting louder. Officer, that man pulled the boy out of the water. I watched him do CPR. The kid was drowning. He saved him. An ambulance is coming. What are you doing? But Hayes had already made up his mind. And when Hayes made up his mind about black men, it usually ended in cuffs. Sir, turn around. Hands behind your back. You're being detained for investigation. Marcus couldn't believe it. Detained for what? Suspicion of child endangerment. Suspicious contact with a minor. Possible assault. Assault? I did CPR. I saved his life. Sir, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Jaden was screaming and crying. He didn't do anything wrong. He's a hero. He saved Caleb. But the cuffs were already out. Officer Reyes grabbed Marcus's arm. Still soaked, still shaking from cold, now shaking from shock and anger. Forced his arms behind his back. Cold steel clicked on his wrists. Marcus Jackson. Silver Star. Purple Heart. Combat veteran. Paramedic. The man who saved 2 soldiers in Kandahar. The man who just brought a 10-year-old back from drowning under arrest. Jaden crying. Crowd yelling. Someone shouted, "This is wrong! He saved that boy!" And while Marcus stood there shaking from cold and disbelief and fury, Officer Hayes read him his rights. You have the right to remain silent. Marcus looked at the crowd, at Jaden, at Caleb now being helped by other people, and he understood. He saved a child's life, and he was being arrested for it. Not because of what he did, because of who he was, and because Officer Brandon Hayes had been doing exactly this for 12 years, and nobody ever stopped him. At the station, Marcus sat in an interview room. They gave him a thin blanket. Not compassion, just protocol. Still wet, still cold, still shaking, now handcuffed to a metal table. Detective Laura Bennett walked in. 16 years on the job. She'd already read Hayes's report. Black male, white child, water. Empty park, physical contact, suspicious circumstances. She'd also seen Hayes's file. 15 complaints, all cleared. She knew exactly what this was. Another Hayes special. Mr. Jackson, I'm Detective Bennett. I need to ask you about what happened at the pond today. Marcus looked at her with eyes that had seen war, death, medals, and now this. I saved a drowning kid, that's what happened. And Officer Hayes arrested me for it because I'm black. That's also what happened. Detective Bennett took notes. Walk me through it. Why were you at the park? Day off. Went for a walk by myself. Heard a kid screaming. Ran to the sound. Saw a boy drowning. Jumped in. Pulled him out. He wasn't breathing. I did CPR. He lived. That's the whole story. And you had never seen these children before? Never. Officer Hayes's report says the circumstances appeared suspicious. Empty park. You alone with kids. Physical contact. Marcus's voice got harder. Officer Hayes has 15 complaints of racial profiling against him. 15. I looked him up while I was sitting in your holding cell. 15 black people filed complaints. 15. And he's still out there. So when he says suspicious circumstances, what he really means is a black man appeared. That's his pattern. And I'm just the latest person he did it to. Detective Bennett didn't answer. Because he was right. And saying it out loud would mean admitting the department had protected Hayes for 12 years. I pulled him out of freezing water. I did chest compressions and rescue breaths for almost 2 minutes until he started breathing again. Yes, I touched him. It's called CPR. It's called saving a life. A knock. Another officer leaned in, whispered something. Detective Bennett stepped out. Came back 2 minutes later. The boy you pulled out is at the hospital. He's stable. He's alive because of what you did. And the other boy, Jaden Carter, is here with his parents. He's giving a statement. He says you did a rescue. Marcus closed his eyes. Finally, the truth. In a different room, Jaden Carter sat with his mom, dad, and a child advocate. He'd stopped crying, but his eyes were still red. 11 years old, but speaking clear and straight. The way kids do when they've seen something real and unfair. Jaden, can you tell us what happened at the pond today? Me and Caleb were skipping rocks. He reached too far and fell in. The water was super cold. He started screaming. He kept going under. I got so scared. I can't swim good either. So I just yelled for help. And then, a man came running. A black man. He didn't ask anything. He just saw Caleb in the water, threw off his jacket and shoes and jumped in. The water was freezing. He swam out, grabbed Caleb and pulled him to the side. Caleb wasn't breathing. The man did CPR. He saved Caleb's life. Did you know this man before today? No. Never saw him before. But he saved Caleb. Caleb would be dead if he didn't help. After Caleb was breathing again, what did the man do? He was shaking really bad. Said he was freezing. Started walking to his truck to get warm. Then the police officer came, stopped him, and arrested him. Why do you think the officer arrested him? Jaden looked at his parents, then back at the detective, and said the line that would be played in courtrooms and news reports. I think because he was black. Because he saved Caleb and should be treated like a hero. But the police officer treated him like he did something bad. And he didn't do anything bad. He saved my best friend. Jaden's mom spoke, voice shaking with fury. Detective, my son just told you this man is a hero. Why is he still in custody? And why was he arrested by an officer who has a long history of doing this to black people? Detective Bennett had no good answer. Sergeant Victor Morales was reviewing Hayes' arrest report. He was also looking at Hayes' personnel file, because this wasn't the first time Hayes' arrests had raised red flags. Just the first time the person he arrested had a record that made ignoring it impossible. Morales ran Marcus's name. No warrants, no record, clean. Then the military flag popped up. Service record linked through VA. He opened it. Stomach dropped. United States Army 2006 to 2019. 13 years. 82nd Airborne Division. Staff Sergeant. 4 combat tours. Awards. Purple Heart. Kandahar, 2008. Wounded saving 2 soldiers. Silver Star with Valor. Paktika 2012. Held position under fire. Saved 11 lives. Multiple Army Commendation Medals with V device. Combat Infantryman Badge. Honorable Discharge. Medical Retirement. Current Paramedic/Firefighter. Station 17, 8 years. Multiple life-saving awards. Sergeant Morales leaned back. Officer Hayes just arrested a decorated combat hero and active firefighter for saving a drowning child. He opened Hayes' file again. Read the 15 complaints. Read the dismissal reasons. Read the pattern that had been ignored for 12 years. He called the chief. Chief, we've got a serious problem. Hayes arrested a Silver Star recipient for doing a water rescue. This one ends his career, not just the arrest. The chief looked at everything. Marcus's military record, Jaden's witness statement, the civilians who saw the rescue, Hayes' 15 prior complaints, the pattern of targeting black people, the internal affairs dismissals that never should have happened. He made the call. This stops here. Get Jackson out of holding. Get the city attorney on the phone. Suspend Hayes immediately pending full investigation. I want every one of those 15 complaints reopened. I want to know why they were dismissed. And I want to know why an officer with this history was still on the street. Marcus was brought out, uncuffed. Detective Bennett's face was tight. Part apology, part damage control. Mr. Jackson, you're free to go. We've confirmed your story. Multiple witnesses say you did a heroic rescue. The boy's friend gave a full statement. We're sorry for the mistake. Marcus stared at her. Mistake? Officer Hayes has 15 complaints doing exactly this, arresting black people for nothing. And you call it a mistake? This isn't a mistake. This is a pattern. And your department protected that pattern until he arrested somebody whose medals you couldn't ignore. Sergeant Morales stepped in. Mr. Jackson, I'm Sergeant Morales. What happened to you today was wrong. Officer Hayes has been suspended pending full investigation. We're reopening every complaint against him. Your service, Your work saving lives, what you did today, everything shows who you really are. You're a hero. You never should have been treated like anything less. Marcus looked straight at him. I shouldn't have been treated like a criminal because I'm black. My medals don't change that. What matters is that Officer Hayes saw a black man and saw guilt. And he's been doing it for 12 years. And your department let him. He walked out. His wife Alicia was waiting in the parking lot, saw him and ran. He was still in damp clothes, still cold, still shaken. She hugged him tight and he finally broke, shaking with sobs he'd held in for hours. I saved a kid, and they put me in cuffs for it. I know, baby, I know. We're gonna fight this. They drove home. And Marcus thought about everything he'd survived. War, wounds, loss, service, and how none of it stopped him from being arrested for being a hero while black. 7 weeks later, the lawsuit was filed. Jackson versus City of Harrison, Officer Brandon Hayes, Officer Mia Reyes. But this one was different. Marcus's lawyer did what should have been done years earlier, tracked down every single one of the 15 dismissed complainants, rebuilt the full pattern: delivery driver, professor, nurse, coach, UPS driver, father picking up his son. All black, all arrested on fake reasons, all charges dropped, all complaints buried by internal affairs. And now a Silver Star recipient arrested for saving a drowning child. The pattern was undeniable. The proof was crushing. The city couldn't defend it. Settlement took 10 months. But the city knew they would lose. Not just on Marcus's case, but on the pattern, on the years of protecting Hayes, on the failure to stop him. $8.4 million total. $1.4 million to Marcus for civil rights violation, emotional trauma, PTSD flare-up from the arrest. $7 million in punitive damages, not just for him, but for the pattern, for the 15 other victims, for the message that this stops now. Officer Brandon Hayes, terminated. Badge and certification revoked. Can never work law enforcement again. Officer Mia Reyes, 90-day suspension for blindly following Hayes. Mandatory bias training. Reassigned. Internal affairs supervisors who cleared 15 complaints, all reviewed. 4 demoted. 2 terminated for intentionally burying cases. Sergeant Victor Morales, no discipline. Assigned to redesign the complaint system and create an early warning program for officers with repeated complaints. The department reopened all 15 old complaints against Hayes. 9 were sustained as misconduct. 5 led to settlements with the original complainants. The pattern was finally on record. The system that shielded Hayes was finally exposed. Brandon Hayes wasn't a single bad apple. He was proof of a system that protected bad apples, dismissed complaints, gave officers every benefit while giving none to black citizens, and only took action when the victim was a decorated war hero who saved a child on video. 15 complaints should have been enough, but the system didn't care about 15 black people saying the same thing. The system only cared when one of them had a Silver Star and had just saved a little boy's life. And that right there is the real crime. Marcus Jackson jumped into 48-degree water to save a drowning 10-year-old boy, performed CPR, brought him back, and was arrested by Officer Brandon Hayes, who had 15 prior complaints of racial profiling and had never truly been held accountable, until he arrested someone whose heroism nobody could ignore and whose record nobody could dismiss. The $8.4 million settlement was big. But the real win was ending Hayes' career, forcing the pattern into the open, and making the system finally look at how it spent 12 years protecting an officer who targeted black people. So here's what I want to ask you. Should cities be forced to pay even more when they ignore 15 complaints about the same officer? Should the people who repeatedly dismiss real complaints face actual criminal charges? And should we have a national public database that tracks officers with clear patterns of misconduct? Put your thoughts in the comments. I really want to read them. This story shows that even a Silver Star, even combat scars, even saving a child's life can't always protect you from racist policing. But it also shows that patterns can be dragged into the light, that pressure can force accountability, and that refusing to stay silent actually changes things. Thank you for staying with me through this one. If it hit you, even a little, drop a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe if you want more stories that tell the truth. I'm Flint, sending you strength and a reminder that your voice still matters. See you in the next one, friend.